For decades, the whole US-Iran conflict has felt, well, predictable. Tense for sure, but we kind of knew the script. Well, what if I told you that playbook is being completely ripped up? There's a new, much more dangerous game starting, one where the old rules of war and peace just don't apply anymore. And that's exactly what we're going to break down. So, what's the first move in this new playbook? It all kicks off with this number: $50,000. That's it. That's the price of admission to this new kind of fight. I mean, think about it. For less than what you'd pay for a nice SUV, a country can now get its hands on a weapon that can seriously challenge a superpower. And for that 50 grand, you get one of these, an Iranian Shahed drone. Now, just picture this. It's a weapon built with simple, off-the-shelf parts. You can launch it from the back of a pickup truck like it's a big model airplane. But here's the kicker. It can cripple a multi-billion-dollar warship or take out a nation's power grid. That right there is the insane power of this kind of asymmetric threat. Okay, so now let's flip the coin and look at the price of defense. To stop that $50,000 drone, the US has to fire off a countermeasure that costs, at a bare minimum, $126,000. Do the math. You're already spending more than double just to break even on a single threat. And why is it so expensive? Well, it's kind of like trying to shoot down a whole swarm of mosquitoes with laser-guided missiles. I mean, each one of these defensive weapons is an absolute technological marvel, right? But they're incredibly expensive. And they're just not efficient when you're facing a flood of cheap attackers. The math, it just doesn't add up. So this leads us to the really big question, right? How long can the US actually afford to keep playing this game? I mean, when every single defensive move you make costs you way more than your opponent's attack, you're not just in a tech fight anymore. You're in an economic war. And honestly, it's a war you're mathematically guaranteed to lose. Okay, so to really get how we ended up locked in this, well, this unwinnable equation, we have to step onto a totally new kind of battlefield. This is a place where that bad math isn't an accident. It's the entire point. It's time to enter what's known as the gray zone. So what is the gray zone? This isn't war like in the movies. Not at all. Think of it more like a boxing match where one fighter doesn't even try for a knockout. Instead, they just land 1,000 relentless, annoying jabs. The whole point of gray zone conflict isn't to win some big, decisive victory. It's to harass, to exhaust, and to undermine your opponent, all without ever actually crossing that line into a full-blown declared war. And, according to US intelligence, these are the 4 big players who have absolutely mastered this strategy. For countries like Russia and Iran, the gray zone is the perfect playground. It's how you go toe-to-toe with a global superpower without ever having to risk a direct military fight you know you can't win. And this right here, this is the core problem for the West. It's like the US shows up to the board ready for a game of chess. Clear rules, a defined beginning and end. Meanwhile, its adversaries are playing a completely different game, one with no rules at all. That fundamental difference in how they see conflict, that's the vulnerability they're exploiting. And right at the heart of this whole new gray zone conflict, there's a really powerful and frankly dangerous new alliance forming. It's a partnership built on this exact strategy between 2 of those key challengers we just mentioned, Iran and Russia. You could say Iran basically wrote the book on being a gray zone actor. I mean, they've been doing this for 40 years. They've perfected the art of plausible deniability, funding and arming proxy groups, like Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Houthis in Yemen, to do their fighting for them. This lets Tehran project its power all across the Middle East while officially keeping its own hands clean. And if you look at this chart, you can see this isn't just random chaos. It's a really coherent, long-term strategy. You can actually trace how their ways, things like proxy warfare, connect to their means, like drones and missiles, all to achieve their ultimate end. And that end is to become the dominant power in the region, without ever getting into a direct, catastrophic war. And guess what? Russia has adopted an almost identical playbook. They know their conventional army is no match for NATO, so Moscow has poured money and resources into the gray zone. We're talking about everything from the election interference and cyber attacks we've all heard about to massive disinformation campaigns and sabotage. It's all designed to weaken the West from the inside. But this is where it gets really serious. This is the game changer. It's the moment where these 2 separate playbooks merge into one single coordinated operation. We're not just talking about 2 countries sharing tactics anymore. No, according to reports from the Washington Post, Russia is now actively providing intelligence to Iran for the specific purpose of targeting US forces. And let me be clear, this isn't just some vague info. We are talking about military-grade real-time targeting data. This is the kind of intelligence that takes a cheap, kind of inaccurate drone and turns it into a precision-guided weapon, a weapon that can hit a moving warship. Russia is essentially giving Iran the eyes it needs to make its cheap weapons truly deadly accurate. So how does this all play out on the actual battlefield? Well, it takes that unsustainable economic problem we talked about at the start and basically puts it on steroids. Yeah, let's go back to this chart for a second. That crazy cost imbalance, it's not just a theory anymore. With Russian intelligence guiding these things, every one of those cheap drones becomes a credible, serious threat that the US has to intercept. This whole strategy is designed to force America to burn through its most advanced, most expensive defensive weapons just to stop attacks that cost pennies on the dollar to launch. So that Russian intelligence, that's the secret sauce. It's what we call a force multiplier. Think of the loop here. Iran makes the cheap, mass-produced hardware, the drones. Russia provides the super sophisticated satellite-grade software, the targeting data. And what you get is a weapon with the killing power of a smart missile, but for the price of a used car. And that forces the US into a cripplingly expensive response every single time. And if you want to understand the scale of this problem, look at this number, 80,000. That's the estimated number of these drones in Iran's arsenal. Now, compare that to the very limited, very expensive stockpiles of American defensive missiles. It's pretty clear who can afford to play this game all day, every day. Iran can. The US, not so much. And this creates a huge strategic vulnerability for the United States. See, every single Patriot missile that's fired at a cheap drone in the Middle East, that's one less missile available to defend an ally in Europe or to deter a major competitor like China in the Pacific. This gray zone fight doesn't just drain the bank account, it literally drains America's ability to project its power around the globe. All of this forces the United States into what you could call a strategic dilemma. It's an almost impossible position, and there are no easy answers. And you might be asking, why is Russia doing this? Well, their motivation couldn't be clearer. Remember how the US and its allies armed and funded Ukraine to bleed Russia's military? Well, Moscow is basically flipping the script. It's payback. As this quote puts it, they're using Iran to take their pound of flesh, to inflict that same kind of slow, draining, painful cost on the US. So when you boil it all down, the ultimate goal here isn't some big military victory. The goal is to bleed the US with 1,000 tiny cuts, is to bog America down in the Middle East, drain its high-tech arsenal, distract its leaders, and damage its prestige, all while Washington really wants and needs to be focusing on the much bigger challenge from China. And that leaves us with a really fundamental question, one that challenges everything we think we know about conflict. When the goal isn't to win, but just to completely exhaust your opponent in a war that has no front lines and no end date, what does winning even look like? This is the new reality of modern conflict. And the question we all need to be asking ourselves is, are we prepared for it?